Hail them.
Hailing frequencies open, sir.
Hailing frequencies open.
I don't know why I keep giving alien street food a chance. It's always such a gamble.
Captain, we're being hailed.
On screen.
Hello and welcome back to another Hailing Frequencies Open podcast where we continue to trek through the past and future of Star Trek. As always, I'm your host, Mike Jones, and joining me is my co-host, Damien. Say hey, Damien.
Hey, Damien. Hi, Mike Jones.
I love setting you up for that.
I know. I'm sorry. I walked right into it.
It's just the two of us today.
I know. Our one fan will be very disappointed. She knows who she is, and she insists that we're only good when Aaron is here. So, you can turn it off right now. Right. You know who you are.
She's like, Mark has played. Next.
Sorry, folks. Just us.
But we wanted to jump in because Picard season 3 episode 1 came out, and we're not going to give any spoilers, but it made me think about this episode of TNG, season 6 episode 22, Suspicions, which is a Beverly Crusher episode. So I thought, why don't we do an episode where we talk about Suspicions? I suspect it'll be fun. Sorry.
I'm all for it. It is a noteworthy episode in my TNG book. I was happy to jump on that idea.
All right. Well, we're not going to do a watch along this time. We're just going to talk about it. So I'll do the quick synopsis, and then we'll jump into the discussion. Suspicions first aired May 10th, 1993. That's 2 days after my 14th birthday, for those of you keeping track at home. Written by Joe
Everyone's doing math. Everyone's doing math right now.
And Naren Schenker, directed by Cliff Bowl. Okay, I wrote this synopsis, so I'm sure I'm leaving out stuff, but I tried to make it short. Dr. Crusher invites some scientists on board to observe this metaphasic shielding that a Ferengi has invented. With this invention, you can fly into the corona of a star. Well, the experiment goes wrong, and the scientist test pilot in the ship dies. Sabotage is suspected, and then the Ferengi scientist is found dead. Crusher can't perform an autopsy on the Ferengi because of their customs. More about that later. But she eventually does an autopsy anyway. That gets her nowhere. She examines the test pilot's body again and makes the discovery that basically proves it was sabotage. She steals the shuttle to show everyone how the shields do actually work, and they do. But surprise, the test pilot is not dead. He's hiding in the shuttle. Beverly kills him. The end.
Well, and it's like it sounds terrible when you don't explain the sci-fi conceit that he did. Right. That he comes from a species that can voluntarily slow down their metabolism to appear dead.
Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and say this. So she performed an autopsy on him, right?
Yes.
What kind of autopsy?
Well, and he says that when he appears alive on the shuttle, and she's like, "You're not dead," and he's like, "Well, she's like, how is this possible?" And he's like, "Well, you should be able to tell me from that autopsy you performed on my not dead body."
Maybe Beverly's not a great doctor.
Oh.
Well, he was the first one of his species that she'd ever seen. And guess
she did set up, he's a complete mystery. I've never encountered one of him before.
That's true. And autopsies in the 21st century might, just involve passive scans, really, and not any, slicing and dicing.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it does seem really strange to me that I feel like they don't go far enough to explain how that worked. That was my first note. Is Beverly a terrible doctor?
Well, and it's interesting because in my cursory research on this episode, right, it's always interesting to find out how these things come about. And I'm sure you discovered the same thing, that this was originally a Worf episode.
I did not actually. And that I didn't read the.
It was a Worf episode, and that it went through several iterations. And Jerry Taylor, who was at the time the showrunner, said, we have overused Worf. We have had an abundance of good Worf stories, but
Right.
as we all know, Beverly is an underserved character, and there had been a dedicated episode about her in a long time, especially one that showed her, first of all, as something other than a doctor,
Right.
and and she has like a real meaty action scene where she, gets into hand to hand, foot to face combat with this dude, and
she gets to go rogue. She gets to
Yes.
to pull a Star Trek 3 kind of thing, where my orders be damned kind of thing. I'm going to steal the ship and go prove that I'm right.
Yes.
And I just looked, the episode after this is a Worf episode. So yeah, that makes sense.
So, and what's the episode after this?
Rightful Heir.
Oh, okay.
Which I think might be the Kalis episode, like the one where they find the clone.
The clone of Kalis. Yeah.
But
it's interesting.
I have to confess, I haven't seen the Klingon episodes as much because Tim always makes me skip them.
This is why I don't watch Deep Space Nine nearly enough, because Colby won't watch it with me.
There you go. Anyway,
but it's interesting that she she is the only person who believes that she knows the truth throughout this episode, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that I never caught about this before, right, that she's stolen the shuttle, she's like gone rogue, she's been fired from her job, she's about to be shipped off to some sort of legal proceeding, right? But then nobody believes that her solution to this puzzle, which she doesn't really solve until she's like inside the star, right?
Right.
But the solution is that the victim was actually the murderer, and that
Mr. Body was the killer.
Yeah, exactly. But what does she do? She fights him, right? And until she's able to pull a phaser out, and then she blows a hole in his stomach, and because he has this sort of like diffuse kind of anatomy where he doesn't have any discernible organs,
he does a total
still
death becomes her. Right.
Yeah, right. And then she fucking, pardon me, she can we swear on this podcast? She vaporizes him.
Yeah.
Right. So when she gets back, she's like, all good now. I solved the mystery. I was right all along. The victim was a murderer, but sorry, I vaporized him. So they kind of just have to take her word for it.
Surely there's a security camera or something in the shuttle.
I would like to think so.
But the shuttle that's all lined with gray carpeting everywhere. Surely there's room for
the hotel lobby shuttle.
Right.
But this is the first time I watched this episode and thought, oh my gosh, like they literally just have to take her word for this. She has like vaporized the proof to her own mystery. The solution to her mystery has been vaporized.
Yeah. There's nothing left.
Nothing left.
And the moment in season 3, episode 1 of Picard that made me go, oh, we've got to watch Suspicions, is that she vaporizes someone there, one of the attackers, and kind of viciously. I mean, like he's down and she vaporizes him, which I think was supposed to like show that she's not the same Beverly that we know. She's life has changed her. But she kind of is the same Beverly. She had that in her all along. Like in this episode, she uses her own convictions and, throws out the rule book and disobeys, orders and medical ethics by doing an autopsy on a Ferengi. Which, by the way, I know this is hindsight.
Yeah, are there Ferengi continuity errors here?
Re-educate me on this, please. Oh, it's not actually a continuity error, but they say maybe they just didn't know what the custom was. But Picard says the family forbids you to do an autopsy. They need to something about bury the body, like they But in Deep Space Nine, we learned that when a Ferengi dies, their body is divided up into little pieces, and then those are auctioned off. So that's the tradition. That's what they want to do. Now, granted, these writers hadn't, that came later, but that's what I like to think, that the family won't really be that mad because they actually just want to chop him up into bits and sell him off for the highest bidders.
Yeah, and it is hard to imagine, from especially what we know about the Ferengi at this point in our, Trek consumption, that it's hard to imagine the Ferengi being very pious about a dead relative. But
right, it doesn't really make sense. And obviously the autopsy is not going to do any damage because if she did it on the other guy and he lived through it, it's not that big of a deal. But I don't know, maybe that's culturally insensitive to me, to the Ferengi. I apologize to our Ferengi listeners.
The other interesting point about this episode is that it is the final appearance of Guinan in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Shut
Is that
up.
possible?
Wow.
I read that and I didn't fact check it. I am maybe peddling suspect information, but
is she not in season 7 at all?
I don't think so. Then she comes back for Generations, but we're gonna have to do the math on this
we're
real
wrong.
quick. Are we wrong?
That's fast. I mean, it is a nice little. She's in the framing device for the story.
Yes.
And
you can see how they can schedule around her availability for. It's one of those kind of things where they just shoot that whole section all at once, I'm sure. Yeah,
it was just her and Gates, really, are the only people that they needed for her stuff. Which I remember as a kid thinking that the being really fascinated by the racket and how weird it looked. Like, yes. I don't know if the props people just made that racket or if there really was crazy rackets in the 90s that looked like that they ordered.
No, I felt like that was a gift. There's someone's take on a futuristic racket, right? And it was meant to prevent tennis elbow.
Right. It's
also
looking.
Interesting. It's interesting that I'm trying to think if we've ever gotten that narrative device with a frame situation retelling of past events. It's very in the pale moonlight.
It's very in the pale moonlight, yeah.
Which, if you don't know In the Pale Moonlight, you need to go watch it.
Yeah.
It is one of our opinions. You'll have strong opinions. And if you're correct, you'll love it.
Oh dear. That's funny. I'm trying to think, are there other TNG episodes where they recount, there's Data's day, but he's not really recounting, he's narrating his day because he's writing to his pen pal.
It feels like he's narrating it as it happens.
Yeah.
Right. This is let me tell you about the last several days that you've missed.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
And it's also interesting that they're not characters that naturally have had a dynamic, had a relationship on the show before that I can think of.
I wonder if the Guinan stuff survives from the Worf version of the script, because they have a dynamic.
Yeah, no, I think it was that she was available. It was her last window of opportunity too. So I think it was, and I think actually, for as much as I think that this is like a pretty solid episode, I enjoy it. I think a lot of the people who wrote it felt like it was not like that. It had so many other demands shoehorned into an idea that, so that it was a Worf story that became that they were like, no, make it Beverly, find a way to make it work. And then they made it Beverly, and then they're like, Whoopi's only available for one more episode, jam her into this too.
Wow.
So the writers who, in sort of reflecting back on this one, don't think of it fondly, which is interesting.
That is interesting. I think I like the episode, and some things survive from it. The metaphasic shielding comes up later. Crusher uses it. And I think, I might be wrong, but I think that in Picard, if you pay close attention to some of the LCARs, you find out that the Titan has metaphasic shielding.
Oh, interesting.
So yeah, I wonder if that's going to come back, or if that's just. I mean, they put so many Easter eggs in like the closing credits and stuff that it might not be anything. But I like that there are fans in charge of the show now. Clearly,
Yeah, it really feels that way.
Yeah.
The other my other favorite thing about this episode is that when she goes and does the autopsy, she immediately then goes to Picard and says, "I did a thing.
Right.
You're not going to like it." And in no way is he surprised. He
No.
knows her. And it's such a good scene for like establishing that if there was any doubt that Beverly was one to go rogue,
Yeah.
it is erased by his reaction, which is kind of nothing.
Yeah.
And
he's
he
not
kind of like
surprised.
sighs and he internalizes in that Patrick Stewart kind of way that's so amazing.
Yeah.
And he's like, "Well, what did you learn?"
Yeah, what'd you learn?
She's
Yeah,
like,
I mean, like, because he wants to know too.
Yeah.
And it was nothing, which that's kind of an annoying part of the plot. Like the she ends up kind of not, it doesn't stick, but throwing away her career to do this autopsy, but then that autopsy literally was a dead end.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of frustrating. I think that's not as satisfying.
Well, and I think it kind of raises the stakes for her because she's
Mhm.
done this terrible thing that has no payoff. So then what can she do but something worse? She can steal a shuttle and fly it into the sun.
Sure. Also, she had to be very confident that the experiment would be a success to fly the shuttle into the sun. There's a bravery there that I think it's important to acknowledge.
A recklessness.
A recklessness, even. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's and I think that's why we're talking about this episode, right? Because we're seeing a new Beverly Crusher in this. Our future selves will know way more than we know right now.
I know.
But we've seen one episode of her being a major badass.
Right.
And it's important reminder that this is not out of left field.
It's not. It's really not. It is within her character. Which is pretty kick-ass, actually. For a character that got underserved, I'm glad that she is getting her due in some way now. Because in the movies, the TNG movies, bless her heart, like she has nothing.
Nothing. Troy has more than her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, she could be an extra, a nurse with those lines. Like
no, it's true. Anybody could have said those lines. And there's actually I can name like one thing that I remember. It's that she and Troy make a joke about their like boobs getting perkier on the Fountain of Youth planet.
If that's the high point of her
that's
time,
literally the only thing that I can remember her doing in the movies. Which I think speaks to the point that that there is a true TNG fan who's steering the ship now.
Absolutely.
And can, because she is, I think she falls into that category of a beloved character even still because of who she is, but that I think we can all admit that we never quite, even in the series, never quite got enough.
Right.
Well,
she started out. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
She started out on rocky footing, the character, because she was Wesley's mom. Wesley was the character that was created first. And it went back and forth between Wesley and Leslie, and Wesley was Gene Roddenberry's middle name, and he saw himself as that character. And then they were like, "Oh well, his mom will be on the show too. Like, it's not just a kid on the ship; like he's there with the family."
Right. And we needed a doctor, but is she a school teacher? Is she a school teacher? Is she a doctor? Like, what are we going to make this Wesley's mom character? Like,
right.
None of it. Oh,
well, we need a doctor, so let's just have her do that. And honestly, I don't think it was until we had the year of Pulaski, as much as I like Dr. Pulaski as a character, the contrast made us miss Beverly. And when she came back, it was a breath of fresh air for the watcher, for the viewer. And and then the writers slowly started to, when they get into the later seasons, the actors clearly have some influence on the character. And maybe the writers are writing to that, or maybe the actors are negotiating with that. Like suddenly Picard and Data are doing Shakespeare on the holodeck. Suddenly she's the dancing doctor, because Gates McFadden is a good dancer and a choreographer. She's the community theater director on the ship. And of course she was Gates was an artistic director of a theater after the show.
I mean, it's a little cringe. That not everything holds up.
That's hilarious. No, I like the idea of them doing community theater on board the ship.
I know. And I'm so hesitant right now to get into like speculation, because we're
Yeah.
we're gonna look like idiots no matter how wrong or right we are. But
we should throw out some like crazy conspiracy fan theories just to be like, so that when we're right.
Conspiracy.
I said it.
Did you now? I feel like I've borrowed this idea from you though, but it's like she left the ship mysteriously to be the head of Starfleet Medical soon after the conspiracy episode.
Right. Yeah, sure.
And then there's a kid who seems to be, this actually was a topic of great debate in our house, is how old is that actor?
That's a great question.
Is he playing 35? Is he playing 40? Is he playing 20?
Right.
Like,
how many years is it supposed to be after TNG? I mean, I know it doesn't match the real calendar.
Well, they haven't seen her in over 20 years.
They haven't seen her in over 20 years. So Nemesis was at least 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So the question is, was she pregnant and left? Is the kid 20? Yeah.
I mean, I assume like literally in like 2 days we're gonna have some kind of answer to this.
Answers, yeah.
Because he's like, "What? Your son?
Is he a clone of Jack Crusher?" Right. That's I don't think that's true.
No, I don't think.
I really hope that we get Will Wheaton back as Traveler Wesley, and like some sort of brotherly scene.
I don't think we're going to get that this season.
Yeah, I don't think so. But wouldn't it be great? It's a reunion season.
I mean, if you're him, you probably already know this. If you're him, you're a traveler.
And be like, I knew about this other brother all along.
I've been watching him.
I've been watching him. It's what
I've been ensuring his safety, but maybe not though.
Not that well.
Not that well.
Yeah, you would think if your son is like a traveler and a watcher, like you would have some safety, but they seem to be pretty screwed at the beginning of this episode.
Well, but also you get the idea that the travelers are watching out for the safety of people who are integral to the integrity of the timeline, and not necessarily like their family.
Their parents. That's true. That's true. Harsh. You just said that she's not integral to the timeline.
Well, I don't know. She's certainly integral to this season.
Yes. That's yeah. So yeah, I'm really glad that we went back to look at this episode. It's interesting.
How do you feel about the bickering scientists?
Oh, sure. Well, it's almost stereotypes. We got the Klingon scientist, played by Trisha McNeil.
Oh, yes, I was wondering if you're
Captain Rachel Garrett.
Yes.
Who I understand there's a Captain Rachel Garrett Easter egg in the first episode of Picard season 3. I don't know if you caught it.
Oh, very much so. The Red
very
Lady.
Much so.
Yes.
Yeah, the Red Lady.
Yeah.
But I mean, she plays it well. But yeah, it's almost a stereotypical, just like angry Klingon.
Mm-hmm.
And the Vulcan
very
woman,
easy to provoke. Yeah,
very easy to provoke. The Vulcan scientist is a little emotional, I thought. But
with the human husband, I found that interesting.
Yeah, it's very Sarek and Amanda, or Sarek and whatever his second wife's name was.
Perrin.
That's just Space Karen.
That's one of those facts. The fact that I can name that there's like some other like really like important in my life piece of information that it has been displaced by knowing that.
Right. Yeah, some important date or person is gone, wiped out, replaced by Perrin in your brain. Oh, and then of course the bad guy. Who was fine.
And probably one of the most respectable Ferengi that we've seen at this point.
Yeah, you're right.
And I read in the notes on this episode that that they had to reshoot some of those scenes because I think because Rick Berman felt that he had been directed to, because he was a scientist, that he was directed to sort of be too respectable.
Really?
Yeah, and so they went back in and gave him some more sort of like Ferengi, because he has those moments where he's like a little bit of a close talker. He sort of is like, you know, he's excited about what he's talking about. He's kind of like hanging on her in that sort of like.
Yeah. Well, he has that off-screen argument with the Klingon. So we needed to see a little fire in him. But you're right. Up until this point, the Ferengi have always been selfish and profit motivated, and they never once does he mention profit or capitalism, or, you know, it's not like I want this to be a success so I can sell it, you know, like.
But he does say that whoever he does offer to sell it. He says whoever goes in on this gets usage of this, you know, gets the rights to it or something like that. He does have a moment where he's sort of business minded about it. Yeah.
I mean, that would only make sense. I mean, he's a Ferengi. It's like their religion, you know?
Right.
Yeah. And we're in, let me think about this. So we're in season 6. So DS9 has started, right?
It has started. Yes.
Yeah. So they've started developing the Ferengi as a race already. Because otherwise you never would have. I mean, if this was a season, you know, even 3 episode, it wouldn't have been a Ferengi doctor. It would have been somebody that, you know, like it. The Ferengi were written so differently in the early seasons.
Well, and you can see that they're sort of like on the long-term path to kind of correcting the last outpost, you know, the Ferengi mistake early on.
I saw this interview with Armin Shimmerman on the Shuttle Podcast show, which is a great YouTube podcast with Connor Trenier and Dominic Keating. Anyway, but he said that he felt like all of Quark was him trying to undo what the damage done by the last outpost. Which is funny. It's such a he was directed that way. He did exactly what he was supposed to do.
Or it's like you can view all of TNG as like trying to undo the damage done by Code of Honor.
Oh, right. Oh, God. Oh, my gosh. Amazing.
It's just funny because I just saw that come up in an interview. There was a YouTube interview that I was watching with Jonathan Frakes and LeVar Burton and Michael Dorn. And that came up, and they were all so uncomfortable having to talk about that episode. It was great.
Yeah.
But how they like fully believed that people like kind of didn't realize until everything was put together, like how bad it was.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's sad. I just watched a YouTube little clip. I don't remember the guy's name, but it was, why do some conservatives like Star Trek, or what did they get out of Star Trek?
Interesting. And
it was fascinating, but one of the things they said is that Star Trek is occasionally overtly racist. And then they like showed Code of Honor, and it's like, okay.
So there's like a small subset of fans that are watching just for episodes like that, hoping for more at some point.
But it was interesting. One of the things they pointed out is that the bad guys, the antagonists, I should say, are usually aliens, because humans are supposed to kind of be the perfect people, and then usually have alien makeup, which makes their skin darker usually. It was kind of if you just kind of step back and look at it, view, it was fascinating. It's a good little interesting take on it. But anyway, on this show, we just tell you to go watch other shows. That's what we do.
Well, not unlike how you and I both listen to the top 101 Trexperts, top 101 Trek characters on the Trexperts podcast, all 12 hours of it.
The Inglorious.
Because I do ride the subway a lot
Trexperts.
and need some. Yes.
Yeah, I listened to
Yes.
all of it, and I'm just
like,
going to
why am I
say,
listening to this?
I like the Trexperts a lot. I disagree with them often,
Yes.
but that's okay.
Same.
I mean, I like that they have like professional insight from the industry. But they
have a depth of knowledge that I don't think anybody else has.
Yeah. But their top 100 characters was really the top 100 actors. They could not separate the characters from the actors. Like, not a single character did they talk about without talking about the actor.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really, I mean, maybe I'm splitting hairs, but yeah.
Well, and then they had Janeway as like number 50, and you're like,
God.
Oh, so that's aggressive.
Yeah, that's a lot. She has a statue, sir.
She has a statue in Indiana. No, and but it's really the their harsh take on new Trek that really bothers me, because obviously in this age of a wealth of different Star Treks that are in different timelines and different or I should say different time periods, that obviously you're gonna like some more than others, and
of course,
but the shitting on Discovery is really
and they have a general kind of and they don't focus on the negative, but they avoid talking about the new shows in a way,
as though they don't exist.
Yeah, as if it's like, oh no, we're not going to talk about this on this show. We talk about things we like. The implication, of course, that then they don't like it, which is fine, but it's I don't know. I don't know.
So I don't know if this is on topic, but we're since we did watch this first episode of Picard, is Rafi Section 31?
I think so.
Right?
I'm calling that.
Right?
Yeah, I think she got recruited into Section 31. Speaking of Section 31, are you caught up on Lower Decks? Did you finish the last season?
Yes, I am caught up. Yes.
When I spit out whatever I was drinking when Boimler's clone, his transporter clone, like joining Section 31, spoilers, and they hand him the little black badge. And he's like, if we're supposed to be covert, why would we wear a badge?
Yes. Yes. Well, which is like, that to me is so beautifully funny. Like, yes, Star Trek has like all of these, like, if you want to split hairs, you can find all of the, all of the plot holes. Like, couldn't she do an autopsy without cutting the body? Probably.
Right.
She probably could have, no problem.
Right.
But like if you, I don't know, it's just such a better way to deal with thinking something is stupid by, making it funny in an animated way.
Lower Decks is like it's my favorite Trek. The thing is, you can't. It relies on you having a knowledge of all of it, but I don't know. It's just, I'm loving it. I'm loving it more than anything else right now. I'll just say that.
Well, I'm wearing my
bold
Ritos
statement.
t-shirt.
Yes.
Which,
Ritos.
by the way, I wear in public, and literally nobody
knows.
Nobody clocks it.
Covert.
Also, I wear my Seeking Jamaharon t-shirt in public, and literally nobody has ever responded to it.
That's amazing. I'm jealous of those shirts. Well,
it's very easy to go down a Star Trek t-shirt rabbit hole
oh, it is.
On various sites. Yeah.
Yeah. I suspect that we've covered this episode pretty well.
I think we have.
Um,
And we've even veered off course, as I sort of predicted that we might.
yeah, because why not? It's nice to just chit chat about the world and the current state of Star Trek as we're trekking through the past and future of Star Trek.
Oh,
trying to
segue.
live up to our tagline.
Yes. Well, and I think this is a great episode where the past meets the future, that, that
Yeah.
they were planting the seeds for action hero Beverly Crusher in a way that they did not realize.
Yeah.
And
I mean, it's Terry Matalas has picked up on all of these little threads, these little, potentials that happened in the show, and it's just awesome. It enriches. No, that's not the word. Enriches the all of TNG. Like, you know what I mean? It's everything is a little. The world building seems more concrete because it's the foundation for what we're doing now. Well,
yeah, no, I'm really excited about where we are, and they've opened so many doors. I want to know who this captain of the Titan is and why he hates Picard and the Borg,
right.
And why did he pick 7 of 9 if he doesn't like Borg? He picked her as his first officer. He gets to choose.
I suspect. I mean, I hated him, right? I suspect he's gonna have a character arc and be redeemed.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, why make him such a dick?
Yeah.
To not go anywhere.
Mm-hmm. I'm more of a Malbec man myself. Oof. Let's Chateau Picard. Come on. He potentially touched the grapes with his own hands. He's handing you a bottle. Like, relax and drink it. He's a legend.
Yeah, like overt disrespect, almost to the point of it being like not believable. Like, really? Mm-hmm. Like, come on, dude. Like, this is a lot.
Oh, and I love now. I mean, now I'm just you're getting my inner monologue here. But I love where Riker says to 7, he's like, "Is that how you talk to an admiral?"
Oh, right.
That's how I talk to a friend.
Right.
Where you're like, and I think we're going to see a lot of that. Where all some of these newer relationships that he has.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I want to see someone from the TNG cast hear Rafi call him JL and be like, "Why you?"
It'd be like, JL.
What kind of friends are you?
JL.
Yeah, exactly. That's presumptuous. That man's a living legend. You call him JL? All right.
That's funny. Yeah, I want to see more interaction there. It makes me sad that the other original characters from the first 2 seasons, I don't think we are going to see. No. But it would be nice to see the 2 families clashing, kind of like, when you have 2 different friend groups coming together at your birthday party. You know what I mean? Oh, it's always kind of interesting. Like, how's this going to work?
Well, and I think we got a little bit of that when with Riker. He recoiled when he heard the way that she talked to him.
Yeah.
And none of that, and in that, because they only knew him as an old man, and so they only knew him when he needed something from them and was not in like his power, so it's the dynamics between them are more started as personal.
Yeah, they started more as equals in a way than they haven't really served directly under him in the way that our TNG crew has in an official capacity.
I am very excited, not tonight, but some other time down the road when we've seen more of this, to start speculating about spin-offs.
Yes. Because it's going to happen.
Because we may see some of those people, right?
Yeah.
Agnes Girardi is a seemingly benevolent Borg queen who called herself the guardian at the gate, at the portal to another dimension, we think, right?
What?
So there's stuff out there.
There is definitely stuff out there.
So
that's the truth is out there. Okay. Let's wrap this one up. Thank you guys so much for listening and listening to our ramblings. And if you have enjoyed what you like, if you've enjoyed what you've heard, then I'm sorry, I just got like a text and it popped up and I was like, what? I thought I clicked do not disturb.
Someone is trying to give you 5 stars right now.
I know. Give us 5-star review wherever you get your podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Hailing Freak Open, or on our webpage, hailingfrequenciesopen.com. And with that, I will say, Hailing Frequencies closed. Hey.